Have you ever looked at the Philippines, with its stunning beaches, vibrant culture, and incredibly resilient people, and wondered, why isn't this country richer? It's a paradox that has puzzled economists and travelers for decades. With over 7,000 islands, abundant natural resources, and a young English-speaking population, the Philippines seems to have all the ingredients for success. Yet, it continues to face significant economic challenges. Today, we're going to dive deep into this complex issue, exploring the historical roots, the systemic problems, and the cultural nuances that contribute to this situation. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about understanding the intricate web of factors at play. So, grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's unravel the story of the Philippines economy. To really get to the heart of the matter, we have to travel back in time. For over 300 years, the Philippines was a Spanish colony. This period didn't just change the country's religion and language. It fundamentally shaped its economic and social structure. The Spanish implemented the encomienda system, which was essentially a feudal setup. Large tracts of land were granted to Spanish colonizers and loyal locals, creating a powerful landowning elite and leaving the vast majority of Filipinos as landless tenants. This system concentrated wealth and power in the hands of a very small group, a pattern that, as we'll see, persists to this day. Unlike other colonies that were developed to produce valuable cash crops for a global market, the Philippines was primarily a strategic outpost for Spain's trade with China, the famous galleon trade. This meant that for centuries, the local economy wasn't geared towards broad-based development, but rather served the interests of a select few involved in this trans-Pacific trade. This created a legacy of economic inequality right from the very beginning. After the Spanish-American War, the Philippines came under American rule. The U.S. introduced significant changes, like public education and infrastructure development. They built roads, bridges, and schools, which laid some groundwork for a modern economy. However, the economic policies also had a double-edged sword. The U.S. promoted free trade, but it was a relationship that heavily favored American goods, often stifling the growth of local industries. Filipino agriculture became dependent on exporting a few key crops, like sugar and coconuts, to the American market. This dependency made the economy vulnerable to price swings and external shocks. Critically, the Americans did little to dismantle the land-based elite structure established by the Spanish. In fact, they often collaborated with these same powerful families, further cementing their control over the country's political and economic life. So, while there was progress, the fundamental structure of an unequal, export-oriented economy remained firmly in place. This colonial history created a foundation that was shaky at best, setting the stage for the challenges of the post-independence era. Independence finally came in 1946, but the young republic inherited a nation ravaged by World War II and an economy still tied to the old colonial structures. The post-war years were a mixed bag. In the 1950s and 60s, the Philippines was actually one of the most promising economies in Asia, second only to Japan. Manila was a bustling, modern metropolis. So what happened? A big part of the story is politics and governance. The Philippines has had a long and turbulent history with corruption. It's a problem that seeps into every level of society, from petty bribery to grand-scale embezzlement of public funds. When money meant for roads, schools, and hospitals ends up in private pockets, development grinds to a halt. This erodes public trust and discourages investment, both foreign and domestic. Why would you start a business if you know you'll have to navigate a maze of bribes and bureaucratic red tape? This cost of doing business makes everything less efficient and more expensive. This massive debt wasn't used for productive investments that would benefit the country. Much of it was allegedly siphoned off. The country is still paying off some of that debt today. This era decimated the Philippine economy, institutionalized corruption on an unprecedented scale, and left a legacy of debt that has burdened subsequent generations. Recovering from such a massive economic setback has been a long, slow process. Let's fast forward to the present day. What are the key hurdles now? One of the biggest is the persistent inequality we talked about. Remember those land-owning elites from the Spanish era? Their descendants, often referred to as political dynasties or oligarchs, still hold immense influence. A study found that a huge percentage of politicians in the Philippines belong to a few dozen powerful families. These families control not just politics, but also major businesses. This concentration of power makes it incredibly difficult to pass meaningful reforms. For example, genuine land reform that would empower small farmers has been attempted many times, but has always faced massive resistance from powerful landowners in Congress. When economic and political power are intertwined, policies tend to favor the interests of the elite, rather than the welfare of the general population. This creates a vicious cycle where the rich get richer, and the poor have limited opportunities to improve their lives. Another major factor is the country's infrastructure. While things are improving, the Philippines still lags behind its neighbors in terms of roads, ports, public transport, and even internet connectivity. Think about it. If you're a farmer in a remote province, poor roads make it expensive and time-consuming to get your produce to the market. A lot of it might even spoil before it gets there. If you're running a small online business, slow and unreliable internet is a massive handicap. Inadequate infrastructure acts like a brake on the entire economy. It makes everything less efficient, raises the cost of goods, and isolates rural areas from economic opportunities. The government's Build program aims to address this, but these are massive long-term projects that require sustained investment and political will to see through. Now, let's talk about something that's a huge part of the Philippine economy: overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs. For decades, millions of Filipinos have worked abroad, sending money back home to their families. These remittances are a lifeline for the economy, amounting to nearly 10% of the country's GDP. They fuel consumption, help families pay for education and health care, and keep the economy afloat during tough times. But this reliance on remittances is also a symptom of a deeper problem: the lack of sufficient well-paying jobs at home. It's a brain drain and a skill drain. The country is exporting its most valuable resource: its people. Doctors, nurses, engineers, and skilled workers are leaving because they can earn much more abroad. While it helps individual families, this mass exodus of talent makes it harder to build strong domestic industries and services. The long-term goal should be to create an economy where Filipinos don't have to leave their families behind just to make a decent living. Finally, we can't ignore geography and natural disasters. The Philippines is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the typhoon belt. This means the country is hit by an average of 20 typhoons every year, along with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. These disasters are devastating. They destroy homes, crops, and infrastructure, setting back development by years. A single super typhoon can wipe out billions of dollars worth of economic activity. While the Filipino people are famous for their resilience in the face of adversity, constantly rebuilding takes a huge toll on resources that could otherwise be used for long-term development projects. Preparing for and recovering from these natural calamities is a constant, expensive challenge that many other countries simply don't have to face on such a regular basis. So, where does that leave us? The picture is complex. The Philippines' economic struggles are not due to a single cause, but a tangled web of historical legacies: political corruption, deep-rooted inequality, infrastructure gaps, labor export dependency, and geographical vulnerability. But here's the crucial part: this story is far from over. Despite these challenges, the Philippines has a vibrant, growing economy with incredible potential. The business process outsourcing (BPO) industry is a global powerhouse. A young, tech-savvy generation is driving innovation. There's a growing middle class and a palpable sense of optimism. The key is to address these structural problems head-on. This means fighting corruption, strengthening institutions, investing in infrastructure and education, creating inclusive economic policies that break up monopolies, and building a more resilient nation. It's a monumental task, but the spirit and potential of the Filipino people are undeniable. The path to prosperity is difficult, but it is not impossible. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a really important and complex topic. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might be interested. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future explorations. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What other factors do you think are at play? Let's continue the conversation. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.